Thank you for joining us. What's happening in the presidential race 2016? First, let's start with the McClatchy-Marist poll. First, let me tell you their headline and their conclusion. It says, Democratic presidential candidate Senator Bernie Sanders leads Republican candidate Donald Trump by a landslide margin of 12 percentage points, 53-41. Sanders also leads former Florida Governor Jeb Bush by a landslide margin of 10 points, 51-41. First of all, who cares what he does against Jeb Bush right now? He's in single digits. So when I saw that headline, I asked our research bureau, Clark Barrow, to get me some more details on this poll. Here's what he found, folks. First, the good news is there were 1,465 adults in this poll. So it met my threshold of at least 1,000. Here's the bad news. There were 431 Republicans. Now, Shane B, I know math was not your strength in high school. If you subtract 431 from 465, you get
35-ish or something.
So that means there were about 1,035 people that were either Democrats or Democrat-leaning. It was a biased poll. No wonder BS was beating people by a landslide. I can't consider that credible, folks. I got suspicious when I saw that. And now I know why. This is why I have cautioned many of you on many occasions. When you see poll results, read it all the way to the bottom to see if they give you a breakdown of the sample that they're using. Now, the other thing is there were in this large sample size 1,080 registered voters. And then it also says the survey methodology did not specify the number of Democrats and Democrat-leaning independents. Then why did they only just say how many Republicans and Republican-leaning independents there were? A third of the poll consisted of Republicans and Republican-leaning independents. A third. And yet they've got the big headlines about how bad Trump is being beaten, Bush is being beaten by Democrat socialist Bernie Sanders. Now, the reason that I bring that up is because a lot of young people have been showing up at the Bernie Sanders rally. And if the young lady that became famous yesterday on Neil Cavuto's show is an indication of why so many young people are showing up, then that explains, folks, that we do have a problem. That we have a problem. She was so, what's the word am I looking for? She was so void of any logic whatsoever that I want to share that with you again.
So the three core demands of the National Day of Action are free public college, a cancellation of student debt, and a $15 an hour minimum wage for people who work on the campus.
And how's that going to be paid?
Great question. I mean, you know, so I'm not sure if you're talking on like a national level or at particular schools. I can sort of touch on both. At
Well,
my
if you wanted
university,
all that
Northeastern
stuff,
University,
someone asked to pick up the tab. Who would that be?
the 1% of people in society that are hoarding the wealth and really sort of causing a catastrophe that students are facing.
You evil 1% need to stop hoarding all the wealth and give it to the students that are airheads. Free college. I didn't tell you to go out and borrow all that money in the first place. I'm sorry you in debt. You're going to have to work it off. These are the kind of people that are being attracted to Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. Where do you think she got the 1% of people in society thing from? Bernie Sanders. In some of his speeches. His free stuff campaign also hinges on, we're going to take it from the 1% that are hoarding all of the wealth. If that were my child or my grandchild, I would first get her out of whatever school she is attending, sit her down and give her a good dose of common sense. A good dose of common sense. Her numbers do not add up, folks. And this is why we have got to change the leadership in the White House. We have got to. Because whether you're talking about the Obama administration or a potential Hillary Clinton administration or Bernie Sanders administration, it all leads to the same place. The financial destruction of this country. And this misguided young lady is simply one example. What else is going on in the presidential race? Well, there was a poll done in the state of Texas. And the results show Republican presidential candidates Donald Trump and Senator Ted Cruz are in a dead heat in Texas with the support of 27% of likely Republican voters. See, they just went to likely Republican voters. They didn't ask Democrats. No, this is how they do it. According to a new University of Texas Tribune poll that was revealed on last Thursday. Now, the significance of that is twofold. One, Ted Cruz is from Texas. So he's tied with Trump in Texas. Not a surprise. He's a senator from Texas. So he's very well known there. But the other significance is the number of electoral votes that Texas is entitled to because of its size. So that is significant. I know that people put a lot of significance on the early states, rightly so, because the early states and how candidates perform in the early states can be a fuel for momentum. But even after that, you still have to win some of those critical states like Texas, Florida, and Ohio because of the sheer numbers of electoral votes, i.e. congressional districts that they have. So that is interesting in that regard, and it speaks well of Ted Cruz and his campaign in terms of how they are doing in places that you would expect them to be doing well. Now compare that to how Jeb Bush and Marco Rubio are doing in Florida. They're both from Florida. Jeb Bush is a former governor. Marco Rubio is a current senator from Florida. But yet, in some of the earlier polls, Donald Trump has been beating both of them in their home state. And the fact that Rubio is also from Florida, his staff counseled him to try and attack Rubio. But it didn't work. Because people are not that gullible. Some of them. Some of them are not that gullible. On the Democrat side, in other news, see, I started talking funny like that, folks, because Shaney B did that to me the other day before we went on the air. He did his, I call it Walter Cronkite-ish sort of get ready for the show. Normally he'd say, okay, time to get the show on the road. No, the other day he goes, stand by, with his hand over one of his earphones. Why did they do that?
I don't know. Maybe back in those days they just plop out of their ear. But I figure that sounds better than "here goes nothing," which I do say sometimes.
He says, "Here goes nothing." He also says, "I sure hope this stuff works." I'm going, Shane, I'm getting ready to go on the radio. What do you mean you hope it works?
Today's show is brought to you by Wing and Prayer.
Stand by. I'm sitting. What do you mean stand? I digress. On the Democrat side, former Secretary of State Hillary Rodham. Did I almost say rotten again? Hillary Rodham Clinton. I don't want to be disrespectful. She has a 19-point lead over Democratic presidential rival Senator Bernard Sanders of Vermont, according to a poll released Thursday. That's not breaking news, y'all. That is not breaking news. Nearly 7 in 10 Americans think Hillary Clinton acted either unethically or illegally by using a private email server while Secretary of State. And even though the mainstream media wants people to forget about it, this whole email server thing, they want the people to forget about questions relative to her ethics. Representative Mike Pompeo of Kansas, he says Hillary's use of a private email server remains a very serious matter.
It is now readily apparent that there was high-level classified information that was contained on a server that didn't have the normal protections, and Secretary Clinton's server did not meet that standard.
But the liberal media, they aren't going to cover that unless absolutely forced to, because they want people to forget about it. They want it to just fade off into the sunset, because they've already decided, the liberals, the Democrats, who their nominee is going to be. And that's why we've got to do a much better job of mobilizing conservatives with some common sense. Hillary's campaign also unveiled a $30 billion plan to help coal communities rebound as the clean energy economy develops. I don't know a more blunter way to say this, folks. There is no clean energy economy developing. Clean energy is not ready for prime time. They have destroyed some of these communities that depend upon coal, and now they are going to throw money at it and say, wait for the clean energy economy to develop. That sounds like something that you're going to hear on the Wing and a Prayer Network. It doesn't exist. So for those of you that are going to vote Democrat, and if Hillary is your choice, or at least Hillary is the choice of most of you, you're voting for another set of empty promises. Can we say Obamacare? You're listening to the Herman Cain Show.